Welcome back to the most incredible podcast in Rockets Nation, man. You got your man's AK Infinity in the building. This is the Rockets Propaganda Channel. This is the Shootin' Ish podcast. And I got a special guest in the house tonight. Number one Jalen Green hater, the number one hated man in all of Rockets Twitter. They probably gonna send me death threats for having you on after this, but it's all good. Welcome, my man's Roosh Williams, man. What's good?
I'm chilling, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a minute since I've, talked Rockets. So season's around the corner. And it's nice to kind of just think like, all right, in a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, we'll get to see some preseason live action games and training camps coming up as well. So pretty exciting.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. That first preseason game, I think, is October 6th or so, something like that. It's crazy.
I want to say the 7th, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, something like that. First week of October. That's all I know. But it's crazy. Yep. I feel like the season just ended. I feel like we kind of ended the season on a bit of a high.
I feel like it's been forever, personally.
It has.
Like it's what, September, training camp about to start, preseason October, 6 months. I mean, half a year. That's a long time. I don't know how it compares to baseball or NFL offseason, but I mean, it has felt like forever since I've barely been checking Twitter until recently, right? So like I haven't even been thinking about the Rockets until these last couple weeks.
Yeah, man, it's about that time though to start checking back in. Things are gonna start happening. Who knows? I mean, somebody might get traded. You never know.
I don't think so, not yet, but we'll see.
Not from us. I don't think we gonna be in no trade market for nobody right now. But it's the NBA. Somebody random might request a trade, and next thing you know, somebody wants to go to the Lakers only.
Yeah, I thought you meant Rockets, so I was like, nah, I think they're going to take this team into the season, and then what happens from there, that might dictate, trades or no trades or whatever.
Everything I've seen from this front office, it seemed like they're pretty patient. They've been very, very patient up to this point.
They're patient, and we can talk about how that's kind of paid off for them, but I mean, extensions are due. So if someone's going to get traded, I think this might be the year that you would see that at some point.
You know what? We can go ahead and get into that right now. As a matter of fact, training camp is around the corner. I mean, who are you expecting to, stand out in training camp? Who are you expecting to, possibly take somebody's spot, take somebody's minutes? Maybe if they don't take your starting spot, they might take your minutes, and eventually they lead into taking somebody's starting spots. How you want to tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, training camp is interesting. I have a feeling that you're going to hear a lot of noise about Amen Thompson. He's a year stronger, a year older, a year wiser. He got hurt in summer league last year. Then he got hurt again during the season. So I feel like he's healthy, you know what I mean? And he's ready to go. And I think we're going to hear a lot about him. And then I think to answer your question about who's going to be taking somebody's spot, Dylan Brooks was a starter last season. I don't think he came off the bench ever when he was fully healthy. But I mean, it's hard to think of keeping both Amen Thompson and Tari Eason on the bench. I feel like one of those guys is going to get a starting spot soon, and I feel like taking Dylan Brooks' spot would be the appropriate spot to take. But yeah, I felt like Amen Thompson, and I got a weird feeling you might hear about Jabari Smith out of camp. Just gut feeling.
That's what I want to hear. I want to hear some Jabari propaganda, man. That's my guy.
Yeah, I just got a gut feeling we're going to hear like, oh, Jabari looks sharp, shots going in, defense looks good. I mean, he's been in the league now a couple years. We always talked about like, hey, his frame's going to fill out the way Giannis did, whatever. I've kind of backed off of thinking that because his frame looks a little smaller in play and practice.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He's kind of like, it's not, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't know if he's going to like stack out. But 2 years in the league, I think he's got to be, 21 now? 20, 21?
Yeah, he's 21 now.
So he's a little older, more physically mature. And I felt like this would be, if we're going to see him start to kind of his body get to that point, I think this would be the time that you might see that.
I can see that because if you've seen the pictures of his daddy, and his daddy was in the NBA too, by the way, played with the Kings. Yeah. His daddy got some muscle on him now. So projecting outward, maybe when he hits like 25, when he gets his man body for real, that's when he really gonna start to, grab some attention around the league. Like, hey, this man has finally arrived. This is the guy that we, for most of that season was projected to go number one over Paolo Banchero and Chet Holmgren. So, yeah.
Well, I feel like he really could have benefited from another year. He was super young. He came in at 19.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, like, the way he played last season, is that's what I thought more or less we were going to get from him as a rookie, right? But it turns out that his rookie season was just awful, right? He really like for whatever reason in that year he just was not a good rookie, right? Unfortunately, but he played a lot better last year, and he was actually a contributing player. I think more of a reliable player, and so he made that big jump. And I'm not saying he's going to make like a big jump in the stats necessarily. Maybe he will. I don't know. But I just think he's going to continue to get, gradually better. So
I can see him I think he'll get more minutes because I can see him playing a lot more center this coming season. But I think he might get the same amount of shot attempts.
I actually disagree that he'll play more center.
Okay.
Because
talk to me.
Because Jock Landale was not playable until like the very end of the season, right? Jock Landale, he was hurt. And I think that's really the reason that he was not playable, but he was not playable. We tried him, didn't work. He was hurt. And then at the end of the season, once Şengün went down, Jock started playing and it actually worked. So that's one reason, because Jock, I think, is still playable. 2, Steven Adams is healthy. So I think you're going to get more minutes of Steven Adams as center. And those would be the main reasons. Basically, last season, we didn't have a backup center. And so we had to run Jabari at the 5 a lot. And I think that wasn't the greatest because unless he's bigger, but he just wasn't, he's not vertical enough and he's not big enough. And he's just kind of small, right? 6'11", 220, not even at center, but he doesn't play big. So I don't think he'll play more center because we have more centers, but we'll see.
I hear you, but I think Steven Adams ain't going to play every game. I don't think he's going to play back-to-backs. Remember, he's just coming off a back-to-back season-ending injuries, or season-ending surgeries, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, and he's a year older, and I don't see him playing every game.
I view him as playing like not in terms of the way he plays, but just the role he plays, kind of like Nene was a few years ago when we had James Harden and Nene was coming off the bench. Nene wouldn't play back-to-backs. Sometimes Nene wouldn't play. Sometimes he would only play like 7 or 8 minutes. Sometimes he'd have, he'd be going off and he'd play 20-something minutes. I think it's going to be something like that with Steven Adams.
I can see that. But I think the case for Jabari playing a little bit more center minutes is going to be matchups. Yep. And I think we saw enough of how he could affect the offense a little bit at center when Şengün went down. And I think that looked really good offensively. And it kind of looked good defensively too in certain matchups until we faced, I forgot what team we faced. It had like a big center and we got mauled. But until we play teams like that, I think Jabari playing a little bit of backup 5 minutes a game, depending on the matchup, depending on who's in the game. I could see that being the case too, though.
I think it'll definitely be matchup dependent. I think that's right. So
he played 30 minutes a game last season?
I think so, something like that. He's been a reliable, in terms of just minutes, sheer minutes and availability. He's been reliable. So I don't disagree with you. I think it'll be matchup dependent, but I do think the Rockets were missing some of that size, some of that toughness, and we'll see what the impact of Steven Adams is. I mean, I'm with you. He's older. He's coming off knee injury, right? And like those two things put together are not good. So there's no guarantee that Steven Adams is going to be the Steven Adams that he used to be. There's no guarantee that Steven Adams is going to be healthy, right? He might not even he could run it out there, get hurt, and then boom, Steven Adams is done. But one potential area of impact that Steven Adams can have that could be huge would be setting screens for Jalen Green, so that Jalen Green, kind of the way that Steven Adams did with Russell Westbrook, kind of the way he did with Ja Morant,
yeah.
Right? Jalen doesn't have the handle those guys have, but we know Jalen can run a pick and roll. And I think the main characteristic that is relevant there is like just the lightning quickness, right? All those dudes are super fast. They'll just hit the gap, boom. And they all have the athleticism when they played with Steven Adams back when Russell was, prime Russ. They have the athleticism to hit the gap and then rise up, and finish, right? And just be lethal. So I think there's something there with Steven Adams unlocking Jalen Green. And so if that's the case, then maybe you see more of Steven Adams. So.
Yeah, and I think I saw when Jalen Green had put out that video of, I forgot who he was working with, I forgot his trainer's name. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of going through how to run a pick and roll with some pace to it, not necessarily just 0 to 100. It's 0 to 20. Accelerate, stop, hit the brakes, accelerate again. Like, that's a big part of Jalen's game that he didn't have, especially when he was a rookie. He was just 3-point line to the rim, or he'll jump super early Next thing you know, that's why he missing so many layups. Even at the beginning of the season, he took bad angles to the rim. He jumped, still did that whole jumping early thing, and it's a bad shot.
It's also why
learned.
Early on, he would get thrown a lot at the rim too because he was jumping from too far back, and it was like,
you're not. They said he was 185. Bullshit.
I don't even think he was that. I think he was like 177 or 180. You know?
Yeah, I don't even know. I always say 180. That boy was light.
I always used to say, "Yo, Jalen Green weighs as much as me." Like, and he's, you know, whatever, 6 something inches taller, you know? So,
man, I seen 6'4", I seen 6'5", I seen 6'6". I don't know. He's taller than both of us. That was what
I think it's 6'4". I'll give him 6'5" though, but I think functionally it's more of a 6'4". But the point is, you know, he does need a little more beef on him. But regardless, look, the changing of pace, like he used to be, I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you ever saw Mighty Ducks 2.
Man, you took it back, boy.
Yeah. The dude who played Benny the Jet, I think his name is Luis Mendoza in the Mighty Ducks. His whole character was like, yo, he skates super fast, but he can't stop. And he would just like, you know, blitz down the ice and then try to stop and like crash into the wall. It was like the joke of the movie. And Jalen Green was kind of like that, right? He was like, yo, I'm turning it on, boom. And then there was no change of direction. There was no change of pace. All he really had was a snatch back, step back. And it's like, that's cool. But he couldn't hit that shot, right? So like you talked about, he got to the rim, wasn't able to finish. He would snatch it back, wasn't a reliable shot. The 3-point shot wasn't reliable, and he was turning the ball over. Those were the main problems with Jalen Green. Obviously, he figured it out. It looked like he did, right, towards the end of last season. But to your point, if he's changing pace and changing direction, and he's getting like a defender on his heels, and then, you know, using the explosion,
learning how to work a defender while you got him on your hip.
Exactly. That's how you manipulate individual defenders and a whole defense, right?
Yep.
Because you're much less predictable, and just frankly, you're hard.
They got to figure out how to help because they don't know what you're going to do next.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think that's going to be a part of his maturation this season, right? I think he finally figured out like how to put it together instead of just getting out there and like going as fast as he possibly could. And the shot started to look better. It's really all, this is oversimplifying it, but it's really all ultimately going to come down to the shot. If he can shoot the way he was shooting at the end of last season, I mean, he's extremely difficult to guard. If he's not hitting that shot, it becomes easier to guard him. But when he's hitting that shot, that's when he goes from like, okay, we've seen a player like this before to, oh, that's one of the best scorers in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would really hope that he keeps it. Now, I'm not saying he got to average the 27 points a game he did in March. He ain't got to do all that. If he got to do that, it means something went wrong somewhere else. Somebody ain't holding up the end of the bargain somewhere, and I ain't trying to deal with that again. I could see him more around like, and I don't really like to put expectations on people's scoring averages or whatever the hell averages. Like they can be whatever they are, just be effective when you're on the court. But one goal I do have for Jalen personally is make us less reliant on Fred VanVleet.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Fred got to shoot too much, it's usually a bad sign. I mean, because Fred ain't the kind of guy who wants to do that, but he gonna do it if nobody else is showing up. That usually means we not winning the game, something is going wrong. I don't want to see that too much. It's going to happen from time to time, obviously. It's the NBA. But I ain't trying to see that too much again this season, man. We saw that a little bit too much last year.
Yeah, I mean, look, part of it's going to be injuries, right? Hopefully guys are healthy and able to contribute so that Fred does not have to do that, right? I'd like Fred to be more of like a game manager, you know, hit the dagger when he needs to, work the pick and roll, you know, spot up and hit open threes, low turnovers, solid assists, basically what he did last season, just like less usage. You know, I don't even know about the usage, but you know, just less like Fred VanVleet being our number one option and more being able to defer. You know, hopefully Amen Thompson is you know, ready to play more and contribute more. Tari Eason, right? Like missed however many games, 60 games, something like that. And then to the point of Jalen, Reed Shepherd, maybe Reed Shepherd is going to be scoring, but then to the point of Jalen, I don't care how many points he scores. To me, it's not really about that. Yeah. It could be. It could be. To me, it's about, I mean, obviously it's about efficiency, you know, because you want him to make the most of his possessions. The issue with him is that he doesn't make the most of his shots statistically so far. But I just want it to come easy to him. You know, once things look like it's just coming easy to him and it's natural and he doesn't have to think and it works basically like it did at the end of last season, that's when it's like, yo, Jalen doesn't even need to shoot that much to completely impact the game. And then when he does shoot a lot, he's probably going ballistic in the game, right? So for me, that's the measure. I just want it to come easy to him. I would like us to take advantage of his athleticism. There's always the joke about the whole Rip Hamilton thing.
I was about to bring that up, boy.
Yeah, but the basis for me thinking that at the time, right, he could not shoot. I mean, if you look at his numbers over the course of his career, he's not a good shooter. And at that time, he was definitely not a good shooter, right? That was at the time where like Ime Udoka was benching him for Aaron Holiday, right? And it was like, Aaron Holiday went over Jalen. This is bad, right? And so my thought was like, yo, the ISO game right there for like the change of direction wasn't there. There was no natural move, like flow to his game. So I was like, bro, the easiest way to remedy that is to just move off the ball. And you're so fucking fast that if you just get to spots, because he couldn't beat people to spots with the ball in his hand. That was the whole issue, right? And then when he did beat them, he was missing at the rim or getting swatted or whatever. And it got to the point where teams really were like super backing up off him because he couldn't shoot threes. And they were just like daring him to shoot threes. So one way to remedy that is to use your athletic gifts, right? And if you can
know how to do that, though. That's
right. It's very difficult, which is why you would watch video over at Hamilton to try to learn.
Look at you.
but if you can move to spots and then be lethal like that, especially with how athletic and fast he is, okay, well now someone's chasing you to the elbow because they think you're going to pull up, and then you don't, and you cut to the basket and you're wide open, right? Like it's just little things like that. I was thinking of ways to get his athleticism useful because it wasn't working on the ball, right? There are certain players whose athleticism on the ball is like lethal. And then there's certain players whose athleticism, they can't break you down with athleticism on the ball. But when you get them off the ball, right, they'll mess you up. It's kind of like a main receiver versus a slot receiver, right? Like they can eat in different ways. And at the end of last season, he looked much more like, an on-ball creating star. And so the off-ball shit was like, okay, not needed, right? But when he was struggling to get going, that was the whole thought process. But the point is, I would like to see an offense where they're using off-ball movement because they have such good athletes right now. Jalen, Amen Thompson. You have Tari Eason, who's not a great athlete, but he's got super long arms and really good instincts crashing to the basket. So Reed Shepherd's a pretty good athlete. So I just want to see them utilize that because I think that could take them to the next level offensively.
Much as I agree with that, there's one problem. In order for all of that off-ball actions to work, we need something that we don't really have too much of,
which is
shooting. Because if I'm a defender and I know I ain't got to close out to this fool in the corner because he's shooting 23% from three, I ain't finna check him for nothing. I'm gonna sit here and watch for you to get the ball, thinking you got a clean path to the rim.
I'm gonna push back because on one hand you're right, but it's not all dependent on shooting.
Not necessarily now, but we have too many non-shooters.
This is one way. This is one way you get it going. Yeah, we do need shooting, and hopefully Reed Shepherd helps with some of that. But this is one way you get it going, right? You post up Alperen Şengün, and so okay, you don't have shooting, but defenders are turning their back and watching Şengün post up, and they're like slowly creeping down to cheat off and to double down. Or sometimes defenders are just not disciplined and they start drifting and dragging. And when the defender turns his back, Amen Thompson cuts from the corner, boom, dunker spot. Jabari Smith cuts to the corner. So it's things like that. Or you just get a quick screen and then Jalen Green rubs off the screen, downhill down the middle, flip it to him, bang. So there's different ways to do it. But given the fact that they're two best passers, and you could debate two best passers if you want to throw Fred VanVleet in there, but given that two of their best passers and creators are Şengün and Amen Thompson, and neither of those guys can shoot, right? I feel like that's kind of, you use that, right? You use their gift to bully guys and then create and then boom, cut off that. But
true enough. I think what's going to be very important in order to pull off a lot of what you're saying, because I do agree that it can happen though if you have the right combinations of guys on the floor. A whole lot of Şengün and Amen Thompson, it can work in stretches, but okay, who else do we have on the floor? It can be, if we got, let's say we got Jabari, Fred, and Reed Shepherd on the floor with them too. I think that works. That'll work. But if you sub just one of them guys out for like Dylan Brooks, if Dylan Brooks is off, it ain't gonna work.
So Dylan Brooks
ain't gonna do a whole lot of cutting himself either.
Dylan Brooks specifically, yes, I agree. Yeah. Right. But again, so what happens when you don't have shooting, right? Here's the thing. Teams aren't going to let Şengün post them up one-on-one. Very few teams.
They had enough of that.
Right? Very few teams will do that. So what do? They double. Now, okay, you double off a non-shooter. Yes, that's correct. And you know, if that's the case, you pass it to the shooter. He's a low percentage shooter. That's bad offense. But if the non-shooter can cut and you're doubling, that's a wide open lane, right? And that creates problems, right? Let's say Amen Thompson is on the elbow, gives the entry pass down to Şengün. Amen's defender doubles Şengün. Amen cuts. That's a flip and a dunk, right? Or it's a flip and then the defense is on their heels. You whip it back out and you move it. You know, like it creates a mismatch. It only works because Şengün draws the double. If Şengün was not worthy of the double team, I would agree with you. But because Şengün can draw that double, guys can move and manufacture offense. And look, it doesn't only have to be like that. I mean, the Rockets have a lot of like ISO scoring ability if Jalen's on, right? I mean,
I don't know if we got a lot. I don't know. I think it's just Jalen and then LP post-ups, which I see as an ISO anyway, because it's one-on-one.
Okay, then let me retract that. You have Jalen.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's dependent on Jalen.
Yeah, if he's on, yeah.
But now you have Reed Shepherd.
He's more pick and roll than one-on-one.
Right, just a rookie, but you have the potential. Fred VanVleet isn't an ISO player, but he can break you down off the dribble, or he can run a pick and roll. So they just have different ways to get it, right? Now, offensively, they weren't great last season. Hopefully this is where Steven Adams can help clear some paths for Jalen Green to become that type of player that, you know, we're hoping he becomes. But I'm also just going to need to see Ime Udoka mold the offense a little bit, right?
Man, you took the words out of my mouth because I need to see more off-ball screens. I understand it takes basketball IQ and these guys are still kids, but at some point you're not a kid anymore. You got to break out. You got to break out of that, bro. I'm not trying to hear that again. You got one season with Udoka. I'm not trying to hear that kid stuff no more, bro. I'm done.
I agree.
I'm done. Learn to be effective off the ball. It's either you getting yourself open or you helping to get a teammate open off the ball. One of the two, you got to be doing something. You can't just be standing still unless the play calls for you to stand still. And you spacing the floor for somebody on the other side of the court. Like that's the only way. Like other than that, you need to either be trying to get open or get somebody else open. One of the two.
Well, it looks like we agree then. When I'm talking about that's what I'm saying. I mean, off-ball screens, right? Because when bodies move, look, here's the thing. When we had James Harden, I think Rockets fans got used to get a star player.
We got spoiled.
People got used to, hey, get a star player, spread five out, surround him with shooters, surround him with the pick and roll dunker, attack, right? Either he ISOs, can't be stopped, or he drives and then dishes if help comes, or we run the pick and roll and you flip it over the top and boom, like you know, analytics, these are the attacks. Okay.
Yeah.
That is not what these Rockets are most likely going to be, right? Now, if you're that, like, those Rockets were super predictable. We were just unstoppable, okay? And that's why we were special. That's why that team was special.
MVP level player,
right? Now,
crazy stuff all game.
This type of team cannot be predictable. This type of team has to be a little more unpredictable, or they have to put you in situations that make the defense think on the fly. What do I mean by that? For example, when you run a pick and roll, sometimes defense is predetermined, like, okay, we're just going to switch everything. But sometimes, depending on the matchup, like they have to make the decision, like, yo, do I go under? Do I go over? Are we going to switch? Am I going to chase my guy? And if you catch them in that split second where they make the wrong decision, or if you catch them if they miscommunicate, right? They think they're going to switch. So one guy switches, the other guy chases. They end up double teaming somebody. Somebody's wide open, right? The point is you force a defense to make mistakes. And the predictable version of the Rockets didn't force teams to make mistakes. They forced teams to pick their poison. It's like, yo, you're gonna ISO on Harden and let that go. You're gonna double Harden and leave 40% PJ Tucker from the corner wide open,
or Ryan Anderson or whoever the hell it was.
Exactly. They made you pick a poison. These Rockets are gonna have to make you make mistakes. So off-ball screen comes. If you're unaware, if you're not ready for it, you're already in no man's land. If it's an off-ball screen, are we switching? What kind of matchup are we getting off of that? What kind of rotations are we making? And bad teams, non-disciplined teams like the Rockets that we saw, 2 years ago, for example, 3 years ago.
Under Coach Smilers.
Those teams will make the wrong decisions, and you'll beat those teams, and you'll get easy points that way. So we need to incorporate some of that. last season Udoka was, I agree with what he did. He had to dumb it down so that these kids could catch up because they were a step behind from the previous regime. So we dumbed it down. We kept it low turnover. He wanted to keep it slow pace, right? Because if you speed it up, you increase the risk of turning the ball over. If you turn the ball over a lot, you're going to get scored on. And that team last year did not have the offensive firepower to withstand that. So we kind of wanted to play like in football, right? If you're not like an explosive offense, but you have a good defense, what do? You manage the clock, you run the ball.
Yeah, you run the damn ball.
Right?
Like the Jets are doing right now.
Jeez. So they had that type of offense, and that was great. But now it's time to turn to the next chapter, right? So I need to see a little more creativity, a little more utilization, and some maturity offensively from these guys, which, like you said, it takes IQ.
Yeah, no more ass naked pick and rolls, whereas it's a plain pick and roll. I'm tired of them things, man. They're too plain. Like, why does a pick and roll just have to include the ball handler and the screen setter? Why are people not setting off ball screens on the other side of the court? If you're on the weak side sending a pick and roll, why is there no Golden State used to kill us with this, bro. How many times did Klay Thompson get a butt naked open top of the key 3-pointer? This is why he averaged like 40 points a game against us.
But that's the thing. It takes a player like Klay Thompson to even.
Well, I see Klay Thompson like he's just a regular player.
I mean, he's one of the best shooters ever.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, right? So like you run a screen and roll. Maybe you have the dude on the elbow set a pin down for the guy in the baseline, and then you have another option. And if they make a mistake, then the baseline cuts wide open. Like there's so many different things, but. I mean, look, I don't blame Udoka because, like I said, like, was Jabari ready for that? Was Jalen ready for that? The players that were ready for that, or one of the players that was Amen Thompson and Tari Eason. But Tari Eason didn't play. Amen Thompson was hurt for a lot of the season. We had Dylan Brooks, low IQ offensive player. He just did, Dylan Brooks.
I love Dylan though, man. I love Dylan. Man, we didn't talked about the whole roster except one guy. Take a guess who it is that we have not spoken about, which I have a concern about.
Cam Whitmore.
Yes, I have a concern about him.
Yeah.
I feel like he might get squeezed.
It's possible.
He might get squeezed because Tari is not coming back to play 10 minutes a game.
We talked about ISO play. We talked about ISO play. We forgot to mention Cam Whitmore, by the way.
Yeah, but Tari is coming. Like I said, Tari Eason is coming back with a sword. He is not coming back to be friends with nobody.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tari and Jabari are in that draft class where their extensions are going to be due soon as well, right?
True.
And Tari Eason, anytime you don't get to play it, it obviously hurts your chances of getting the type of extension you want. So to your point, yeah, Tari's going to come ready to play, and he's going to make the team better. Like when he plays, it's going to work. I'd be surprised if it doesn't. Cam could get squeezed. I mean, look, when we talk about IQ, although Cam does move off the ball, and that's the type of athleticism, we totally forgot to mention Cam Whitmore. So yes, that's the type of athleticism. Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, you have those type, Jalen Green, you have those types of guys cutting. They will finish above the rim with authority, right? But I agree with you, right? He's got to play. He's got to learn how to do more than just ISO. Like he's like the kid when I go hoop at a 24, it's like, yo, this dude is so gifted, but he's not that big of a problem because he doesn't pass. So if he's off, it's like, okay, fine. If he's on, he's on. He nothing you can do. But Cam Whitmore has to figure out how to be more of a threat in different ways. He can't just be a dude that shoots a bunch. Unless he can, but if he wants to hit his full potential.
If he obviously if he's hot. But my concern with Cam is he got a little bit of, I don't even know if it's a little bit. He got a lot of Westbrook in him, and I'm talking about Westbrook and I ain't talking about like just bricking everything. My thing is his personality can lose us some games because he'll take a matchup personal. Or somebody's barking at him, he want to go get it back right then and there. Or if he gets beat on defense, he want to go get it back right then and there. And that can blow up your offense, and that can create turnovers, bad shots. Next thing you know, other team getting out on the break, and he ain't hustling back to get on the break because he mad. He barking at the ref. You ain't call a foul. Like stuff like that, bro. Like that's the kind of stuff Cam need to clean up because he's too talented to let that stuff mess with his game because he gonna get his minute squeezed if he's doing that this season.
It's possible. Yeah. I mean, I agree. it's just about maturity. He's got to kind of, he's young too, right?
Yeah, he's still a kid. So I have grace with him. I see so much in that kid, man. I see so much grace.
If the way that you just described it, if it plays out that way, I could see him being, a centerpiece of like a trade. Because I'm not saying that the Rockets would be interested in trading him, but I bet he would be a really intriguing prospect on the market. People compare him to Ant. No, I don't think he's Ant.
No. I don't like that comparison at all.
Think,
you know who he reminds me of? Jason Richardson.
Yeah, Corey Maggette.
Corey Maggette is another one. I think he's a better shooter than Corey Maggette, though.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, and when you mention Westbrook, he's a better shooter than Westbrook. I know you're talking about just
attitude. Mentality. Yeah. Which it can be a good thing. The mentality is what got you to the dance in the first place, right? But you got to know how to add some color into them pictures. Color within the lines sometimes. Man. You can't be coloring all outside the lines where your name supposed to be at. You coloring green, orange, and purple. Like, come on, let's stay within the lines sometimes, bro. Like, know when you getting out of your element and you hurting the team. Don't let your personality hurt the team. Let it be a boon to the team.
So he shot 36% from 3 last season.
Yeah, and it felt like it was better percentage than that. But some of them games,
it did. But he's never met a shot he doesn't like. So
right, and I like that.
Yeah,
I do like that attitude. I like that part of it.
It really speaks to how there's just so much more to the game than scoring. He had flashes on defense, right? Mm-hmm. He's not principled on defense necessarily. Sometimes he makes the wrong switches or.
He's a gambler too.
Right, he is a gambler, and that's that's very hit or miss. But there are times where he makes a real impact on defense because of how strong he is, how athletic he is.
When he switches against bigs, you can't move him. He's stout from the waist down. He's stout,
and that's one reason why he's not Ant, by the way, because Ant has super long arms, and I think he has big hands. I'm not sure, but like those types of gifts are what takes you from just being like a good player to like when you put it all together with the skills to being next level. And then also Ant creates, and Cam just doesn't create. I think Ant will give you like 3-4 assists per game.
Cam
there was one point
3-4 assists a week.
There was one point where Cam was averaging less than 1 assist per 36 minutes.
Yep, I remember that. Let me see if I can pull that up.
Did he average more? I hope he didn't, but he might have averaged more turnovers than assists. Let's see. Because if he did, right, like that's not necessary.
He was right on par. Oh no, that's the projection. Sorry.
He
last season
0.7 assists per game, one turnover per game.
You can't be doing that in your limited minutes, man.
Right. So I mean, especially as a shooting guard, right? Like there's just gotta be more let's see, assists, 1.4 assists per 36 minutes. That's not great,
So nasty.
So he's got a lot of maturation to do, but he's emblematic of what the bigger I hesitate to call it a problem, but it might eventually be a problem. For the Rockets and they just have too many mouths to feed, at some point, somebody's going to get squeezed in that rotation. Cause let's just run through it. Starting lineup from last season: Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith, Alperen Şengün. Let's say that remains the same. That's 5. Okay. Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Steven Adams.
Man.
That's 8.
Reed Shepherd. He's going to play. Reed Shepherd is going
to play. He might not, though. I mean, I have a theory that Aaron Holiday is going to play over Reed Shepherd unless Reed Shepherd is just like crushing it, killing it, right? Ime Udoka loved Aaron Holiday, so we'll see. But that
seems like you like Reed Shepherd too, though.
Yeah, and he might.
We'll see. We'll see how it plays. That's why training camp is so important, man.
Yeah, I agree. But Aaron Holiday, Reed Shepherd, whichever one plays, that's 9. Ken Whitmore becomes 10, and
that's tough.
Like you don't really play 10 guys like that. You know what I mean? So he might.
We ain't even got into Jock Landale. Well,
Jayshawn Tate.
Jayshawn Tate ain't playing.
Jeff Green played a lot last season. Like, is he going to play this season? I don't know. But Ime Udoka likes his vets, so
I think Jeff Green is going to go back to being the vibes guy he was supposed to be in the first place. He had to come in a lot to save Jabari's bacon a lot at first, at the beginning of last season, and then
that's true.
Jabari got it together.
Hey, but he can still play.
Yeah, he can for sure.
I'm actually surprised at how high he can still get at his age. Like he will still throw down, like a poster dunk, even at whatever 36, 37. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, even defensively, I'm still surprised that he can still, move a little bit defensively. I'm surprised, but then again, he does talk about how, one of the things he teaches the young guys is how to take care of your body in the league, because it's very important. You can't be playing in the NBA at 38 years old, 37, 38 if you wasn't taking care of your body in the first place. Look at Bron.
Yeah,
Bron like 52. So
yeah,
he's still averaging 25 a game.
I think he was drafted in the draft either before or after KD, one of the two. I can't remember. After. So yeah. I think he was.
No, hold on. I think they was in the same. I think they may have been in the same draft.
Drafted to the Sonics.
Yeah, he was drafted to the Sonics.
Yeah.
And Westbrook was drafted after them. Yeah, KD and Jeff Green was in the same draft. They was both in the top 10.
Okay.
Let me make sure. Maybe I'm talking out of
I want to say my guess is Jeff Green's 08 and KD's 07, but I don't know.
Jeff Green is why the damn thing ain't saying
2007.
2007. Yeah, 2007. Yeah.
Oh, they might have
been fifth pick. Yeah, fifth pick. Let me look at that draft. 07 draft. Yeah, same draft. Yep, I knew it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Because I was a big Jeff Green fan at Georgetown myself too. I loved him and KD. I was shocked they went to the same team. I was like, oh, they finna be killer.
Oh, he was traded. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Anyway, so super athletic, right? And just in incredible shape. But that's a deep team. And there's no guarantee that Cam Whitmore's going to be in that rotation. You just don't know.
That's gonna suck. That's gonna suck. Man.
People are gonna have to. But injuries also happen.
That's true. That's how Cam got his minutes in the first place.
It's next man up. So you just never know. And that's what's so interesting, right? We talk about like predictions and this and that. It's just so hard to know what's going to happen.
Right? Because the unpredictable happens.
If you were going to tell me Tari Eason would miss 60 games, I wouldn't have guessed that. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, man. I wanted to get you I don't know if you know anything about him yet, but I wanted to get your take on Jack McVay, man. What are your expectations from him? Do you think he might, get some spot minutes with his shooting? Because we do need that skill set. Like, what do you think?
Or is he on the G League team?
He on the team. I think he got a two-way.
The Australian
team. Yeah, the Australian guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked into him a little bit. I was like, he got a jumper. Like, the form is beautiful, and he look like he ain't shy to pull that thing either. He like 6'6", 6'7", I believe.
Oh, I thought he was big. I thought he was like 6'9".
Nah. Let me check this out. Well, how tall is he?
Yeah,
sorry, he's 6'8". He's 6'8".
Okay. Well, 6'8". Okay. I don't know. I wouldn't expect him to play unless like guys are hurt or unless he is just lighting it up in the G League, right? If he's on a two-way, my guess is that they're gonna stick him in the G League and see what they have.
He's 28, man. He ain't gonna be in a G League. He's 28.
28. Wow.
Yeah, he ain't.
I don't know. I would just be surprised. Like, I mean, if we're desperate for shooting, maybe he gets a shot. But I mean, we just went through it, right? I think we named 14 players.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say I think we do have some injury insurance this season because there was a point mid-season last year where a couple guys started getting nicked up. Şengün got hurt before the second time. He got hurt for a little bit. What's the name? Fred got hurt.
Dylan missed a few games. Yeah,
Dylan got hurt. So I think we more.
Griffin stepped away, by the way. So
he out of there. So yeah, I forgot all about him. Yeah. So he wasn't gonna get a whole lot of time. No way. I don't think.
Yeah, I like the trade, but I guess
it was a good idea. It didn't work out. You couldn't predict that. Nobody could predict that. Usually, I'm hard on Stone, no Diddy, but it's like, yeah.
Well, I mean, I won't criticize it either way. I mean, I like the trade. I just wonder if that was on their radar when they made the trade. I'd be curious to know if they like had some kind of idea that like, AJ's going through XYZ or whatever,
Asset management, Twitter. I'm shocked that they didn't send out bomb threats to that man's house, bro, or Toyota Center, man. Because the way they put him up last season, I was like, damn, I understand that this trade was kind of crazy, but man, y'all are going a little bit too hard now.
I mean, it was the 44th pick. If it ends up being a bad move, it ends up being a bad move. But like I said, I'd like
the idea behind it, the processing behind it was solid. That's all I really can say, man.
I like the swing, the move for it. Like I said, I would just if they knew he had issues going on, that would change my mind because then it's like, okay, that was a gamble and it blew up in your face. But at the end of the day, I'm not losing sleep over the AJ Griffin trade.
Yeah, insignificant. Because think about how many 44 picks end up even being in a rotation, let alone a roster.
Probably few.
After like 3 years anyway.
Right, yeah.
So, a lot of them guys still in the G League right now.
And look, with all the second round picks that they've traded away, I mean, this is a do or die season in a lot of ways because of financially what's going to be happening, right? Şengün and Jalen due for their extensions. Tari and Jabari due for their extensions the following year. Are you going to commit big money to these players? How much money is it going to be? Are you going to end up having to trade some of these guys in a consolidation trade? I think a lot of it's going to depend on, what is the product this season? I think their idea the whole time has been, hey, we're going to see what we got. We're going to evaluate that. And then, if this team comes out and wins 45, 50 something games, maybe you try to keep it together. If it falls short, or if it does win 45, 50, but you see the holes and you need to patch it up and upgrade, maybe somebody gets traded. So I say all that to say second round picks and all that. I think we're focused on the roster they have. And they have a lot of assets on this roster if they got to trade them, because there are some good players on this roster. So
I'm going to throw a scenario at you. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. We on a 50-win pace. Reed Shepherd is killing it, leading the Rookie of the Year race. Keep in mind, Fred VanVleet's contract is on a team option for next season. So right now, as we speak, he is an expiring contract unless they pick up that option, unless they pick up that third year. What's the chances Fred get traded?
I think
all of that lines up at the same time.
I think low, because I think you'd have to find a team that specifically needs him, has the ability to take on his 42-something million, and is willing to take on that 42-something million, knowing that the third year is not guaranteed in the team option. So how much? What are they going to give up, right? Like, do they have confidence in re-signing Fred VanVleet? Do you think Fred VanVleet is going to go back to the market and you're basically going to lose Fred VanVleet? So, like, what is that asset? Like, what are you willing to give up for that? And then also, if you're the Rockets, do you want to give up that optionality? Like, there's a chance that you bring Fred VanVleet back on a much more team-friendly deal. Like, maybe Fred VanVleet re-signs for something much, maybe not, because we're starting to see some crazy money get out there. So maybe $42 million for Fred VanVleet is kind of on point. And then also, I mean, I think the Rockets strongly credit VanVleet for a big part of their culture turnaround.
Hell yeah,
like Fred and Dylan. Yeah, like Fred mentors. Fred is about it too, right? Like, everyone talks about James Harden, but Fred has really, and the fact that the Rockets didn't, bring him back or re-sign him, even though he wanted to come to Houston, but Fred really embraced the idea of like, hey man, I'm the OG. I'm going to kind of bring these kids along. I felt like that would have been the case with Harden, but in a different way, in less of a mature, like teacher style type way. So yeah, I think Ime Udoka really values Fred VanVleet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he does.
I would be shocked if he got traded unless it was like just a win-win type deal.
Yeah, I think it had to be a perfect storm. But I just think we got to keep that in mind, because the contract is structured like that for a reason. For that type of optionality, you want to at least have that option. Now, that might be a backdoor agreement where it's like, hey, we just gonna structure the contract this way, but come the third year, we're gonna decline that team option. However, we're gonna stretch you out for another 3-4 years, and hang out with these kids again.
I don't think they're gonna have a lot of guaranteed money on the books. I haven't looked at it in a minute, so I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong. But let's say Fred VanVleet, let's say the team declines his option, $42 million off the books. I think your biggest money after that right now is Dylan Brooks at $21.5 million. And then after that, or not after that, but the next question is, okay, how much? Well, I guess the next question is, are you extending Şengün and Jalen? And if you do, for how much? Right? Because, depending on how much you spend on them, then, okay, your cap changes a little bit. So I think all of those things kind of feed into, do you bring Fred VanVleet back? Do you want to, do you have enough money open to go hunting for another free agent? I don't know. I don't know what the cap looks like for them after this season. And then you got to, by the way, you got to extend Jabari and Tari, right? Like they'll be entering the fourth year of their deals. So their new cap figure won't kick in the following year, I don't think, right? The year after this next season. But then the year after that, is when their extension would kick in. So if you have Jalen and Şengün extended on the books, and then you get Jabari and Tari extended on the books, and then you have Dylan on the books, it starts to add up.
According to Hoops Hype, we gonna have, I don't know how accurate this is, to be honest. It's $39 million guaranteed in 25, 26. However, they counting Jock Landale's contract as guaranteed when it's not.
Okay, yeah,
because I believe they got early termination every season, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's right.
Yeah, so it's really just
39 guaranteed, 31
it should just be 31 guaranteed.
Okay, and that's going to be what, to Dylan and then
Dylan and Reed Sheppard.
Well, Dylan, Reed Sheppard, and then probably the rest of it. Well, no, but they would have like what?
Well, they're supposed to sign. They're gonna have to sign either Jalen or LP or both.
Oh, you're right. Okay,
yeah. So there's that.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. So there's your answer, right? So how much are they paying all those other guys?
And Fred's third year is $44 million if they pick up that option. We'll see.
Maybe they can pick up the option and go into the cap without hitting the tax or whatever. Maybe there's ways to maneuver around it. But I guess ultimately,
man, that CBA stuff, boy.
Yeah, I got to learn it a little bit better.
Man.
But ultimately, the question is it worth? Is Fred VanVleet worth that to the team at that point in time?
Well, it depends. What's the cap at that point? If the salary cap blows up, that may look like a mid-level contract.
Yeah, I mean, look, Isaiah Hartenstein got something like 30 million, something like that.
He getting 30 a season, which is and he's going to be coming off the bench.
No, I think he's starting. I think they're going to go him next to Chet.
That's crazy if they do that because they're giving up their 5 out, but then they win on the rebounding because that's how they was getting their ass whooped. Like they was getting stomped on the boards.
Well, Chet can play spread, right? So that I think that's what makes it work.
Yeah,
but
if he's playing the 4, yes. If he's playing the 5 again, they gonna get stomped on the glass, boy.
Well, I think Hartenstein plays the 5, and then you have Chet at the 4. That's what I think they would do. But
I thought I read somewhere that Hartenstein was gonna come off the bench. That he was like, okay, coming off the bench. I could be wrong. I don't care. I hope they do what's worse for them anyway.
I'm sure he's okay coming off the bench, but we'll see. My prediction is Hartenstein at the 5, Chet at the 4.
I just hope whatever they do don't work. Screw OKC.
They're gonna be good. I think we just got to get used to it. They're gonna be good.
Please don't. Please. I hope somebody just doesn't play well. Like, please don't. I'm sick of y'all. I don't like y'all. I don't like Oklahoma City, man. I like the players. Man. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's the fans I don't like. Because really, we got a long-standing rivalry with their franchise. I don't think people remember. I don't think some people old enough to remember. They used to knock us out the playoffs every year playing that. They was the original switch everything defense.
They were the Supersonics, man.
They was really Supersonics for real.
Yeah. So I mean, it does go way back, and even with the Thunder, right? The trades, Harden.
So much history there, man.
Yeah. And we played them in the playoffs quite a bit the last decade.
That's crazy.
But and then obviously Pat Beverly injuring Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, you got the Pat Beverly thing.
When they were supposed to probably win it all. I'm sure that one hurts too.
Not only did we do the Harden trade, but they got that back with the Chris Paul trade.
Yep.
And we still played them in the playoffs immediately again. Because I think when we played when we first got Harden, we played them immediately in the playoffs their first round. Yeah, we sure did.
8-1. And then when we traded Chris Paul, we played them immediately in the playoffs as well.
Yep, played them immediately in the playoffs in the bubble. That's crazy that we had this much history with that one franchise, man.
It's pretty wild. We played them when Russell won the MVP and Harden should have won the MVP.
Man, yeah, it's crazy. And then Harden and Russ is like childhood buddies. It's just so much, man. It's a whole lot. There's a whole lot, man. That's one of our biggest rivals. I don't think people realize that. That's one of our biggest rivals.
Yeah, I want out of the rivalry though. Like I'm not trying to. I don't want any part of that rivalry because I feel like they've usually had our number. I know we beat them the last 2 times in the playoffs, but man, I hope.
We got rings, so we win in that rivalry.
That's true. That is true. They might get
some. That's the only solace I have, man.
They might get some though, man. Be careful because they, when they picked up Caruso, they picked up.
That's
Hartenstein.
A big move, man. That Caruso one, because them Josh Giddey shots that he was getting, Caruso not missing those.
And defensively, I mean, it's just super upgrade.
He's a madman.
Right. So we'll see.
He's Jay Sean without the fouls.
Yeah. No, that's Lugens Dort. So they have Chet, Hartenstein, Shai Gilgeous, Dort, and then who would be their fifth starter? Why am I? It wouldn't be Caruso. There's someone I'm missing.
Jay Will.
Jay Will. There you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Jay Will.
Oh man, I forgot about Jay Will. So, man, that's
they
a good
loaded,
team.
man.
If I was them personally, I would start Caruso over Dort, or maybe I guess you don't have to. You can close with Caruso, but yeah, they
got options.
Good. Yeah, they can score, they can defend, they can create, they can shoot. They got size, they got length. I mean, they're versatile and they're talented.
Who do they close with? That's a good.
I think
problem to have that they have. I think they can go different ways too, depending on matchups. Again,
they can. If it's me, I think my base starting or closing five would be Hartenstein, Chet, Jay Will, Shea, Caruso. But they got Case and Wallace. They have Dort.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be good.
You know, they have the other Jay Will.
They may end up moving him for somebody though.
Possible.
Yeah, but then they just drafted Nikola Topic, which he could end up being a damn fool. Yeah, he got that level of talent, but he could also just be like nobody because of his injury too. And then apparently his bones made out of bananas.
Yeah, well, we'll see. You know, but yeah, I mean, look, I think the Rockets. I just have a weird feeling it's going to work. I can't explain why, but it feels like, for a long time the NBA was about star power, and I think you still need a star, but at the same time, I think we've gotten to a place where teams have been like building more so, like the super team eras kind of died in some ways. And I think it's not fully back to how it used to be, but it's more so a little bit like teams are building. They're getting caught up having to max out players that like maybe you don't necessarily want to max out, like Michael Porter.
There's more parity.
Right. Yeah, but there's more parity, right? Like the Nuggets are basically forced to max Jamal Murray. They're forced to max Michael Porter Jr. Like, would you max those guys? Maybe not, but like the Nuggets have their team now. The Bucks have had their team. The Thunder have their team. The Celtics have their team. The Knicks, like they have their core. All these cores have kind of popped up, and they feel like real squads that are sticking together. And so, anyways, because of that, I think the Rockets have complementary players. And they're starting to get like more mature. And the
West is getting old. There's some guys out there getting old. Clippers, Lakers, Golden State.
Oh man, the Clippers. I cannot wait to watch Kevin Porter Jr. and James Harden together. That's going to be.
I ain't gonna lie. That's an interesting team over there, man. I ain't gonna lie.
I don't think they're going to be very good.
I don't think so either, and I hope not. But I just want to watch them because I just want to see how that dynamic works now without Paul George to blame for everything. I want to see how that works.
I think Kawhi Leonard's going to get fed up quick.
Either that or he's going to be injured, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you lose Paul George, and then you pick up KPJ. Like, I don't know. It just seems like they go from like this contending team. Like the amount that they were depending on Harden for was much less. But now you're depending on a lot out of Harden if you want the team to be good.
They still got Bones Highland too, who I think is very talented. I don't know why they're not playing. He needs to get some time.
He's like a Cam Whitmore, not the way they play, but the idea, right? He's just a scoring guard. You know what I mean? Like, where does that really get you, right? You need more than that. But I think the Rockets have defense and athleticism and scoring and passing. They're a little
pretty balanced, actually.
We're a little deficient on shooting, but you get some size now with Adams and even Jock Landale, so they're kind of shoring that up. They have potential star power. It just depends on if these guys hit. Jalen, Şengün, to a lesser extent, Amen, Cam Whitmore, Reed Shepherd. So like they just, they've got a year under their belt with coach. They know their identity. They finished with a top 10 defense, right? We don't talk about that enough.
Which was crazy for as young as they are. They had no business being a top 10 defense.
Young, not physically like big and imposing. They were even better with Şengün as their starter. And then
no all defensive players either.
Really? Okay. Yeah. No all defensive players. Well, former one with
a former one, but this season, the season where we were top 10, no all defense at all.
I think they were 7th in defense when Şengün went down. They finished 10th. I don't know what the actual numbers finish as, but the point is they sustained injuries. Tari Eason missed 60 games and they still had a top 10 defense. Amen Thompson missed a lot of time. They still had a top 10 defense. I mean, they did this with, Aaron
with
Holiday,
quote unquote defensive liabilities on the floor because I was told Jalen and Şengün can't play defense. That's what they told me. I don't know if I'm supposed to believe that, but that's what they told me.
Dylan Brooks, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Fred VanVleet, like Jabari Smith. I mean, they can. Now you got Steven Adams. Like, they're versatile defensively. They're locked in defensively. They play, for the most part, smart basketball. If they can just flip a couple switches and get a little bit of luck, if Jalen Green, and a lot of, like, look, I said this on Twitter the other day. I know people associate me with Jalen Green based on the past, but it's true. If Jalen Green, hits that potential that we all thought about when he was first drafted with the Rockets, if he becomes more of those glimpses he's shown us after the All-Star break, I mean, this could be a really good team. And if he's not that, it could still be a pretty decent team. So
the Rockets were 23-13 when Jalen Green scored 20 points or more in the 2023-2024 season. That is a 63 win pace. That's like a 64% win percentage. So we win it at a 600 rate when he scores 20 or above. We're not even talking 25 points, 30 points, just 20 or above. That's where we know you can do that every game. And he only did it 36 times. What does that tell you? Is that more encouraging to you or frustrating?
It's to me, it's encouraging. I mean, 64% of their wins on an 82-game season is roughly like 52 wins, right? I just wish he'd be more efficient. He was 9-3. He scored 20 or more points 12 times after Şengün went down, and the Rockets were 9-3 in those games. So they were 23, 14, and 11 prior to that happening, which is still above 500. So that's good. But yeah, I mean, look, it just shows, like, when he can take it to another level, the Rockets can be a winning basketball team. It's really that simple. My podcast partner, Frank, he says it all the time. He's like, the Rockets are a Jalen Green leap away. And that's true. And that puts some pressure on Jalen Green. But man, if he becomes that type of guy, and he went crazy last year, he doesn't have to put up 28, 30 points a game. He can just do it with 22 a game, for example, if it's a nice, efficient 22. But if he can become that guy, that is the missing piece, because then you don't have to trade for star power, right? You have everything, every single thing you need. You have wing defenders, versatile ones too. Like we already talked about, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, Dylan Brooks. Like, man, those four dudes switching on the perimeter, if Cam Whitmore can get locked in and add himself to that mix, those body types and athleticism and strength switching on the perimeter is a nightmare. And then you throw in a guy like Fred VanVleet, who, okay, he's only 6 feet tall, but he's stout, he's strong. He got quick hands.
He don't play like it.
He led the Rockets in blocks per game last season. That's off the top of my head, but I think that's true, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Super quick hands.
Boy.
So you
them
put
ain't
all
blocks,
together,
man. Them steals.
I know. I hate how they call them blocks.
I hate that, dog.
But Jalen played good defense last season, and he's very athletic. You got even guys at the end of the bench like Jayshawn Tate that can jump in and D up if they have to. You add Steven Adams. Like, I mean, that is a team that can go toe-to-toe with anyone if you have star power on the offensive end. And if Jalen Green fills that role, and if Şengün is more of the same that he was last season.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It needs to be the two of them. It can't just be one or the other, man. That's not – we've seen what that looks like. It's not going to work. We need them both to be, locked in from game one. I'm talking about even preseason game one.
Yeah,
I don't care, bro.
Jalen's got to stop getting off of the slow starts, right? He's got to get off.
He has to. Like, think. Look, Jalen, if you're watching, I know you're not, but if you happen to watch this or somebody clip this up, remember the first game of the season. Just think March, all right? Just think March and do your thing, bro. Please.
I'll also caution people. I know we made a lot out of when Şengün went down and how they played. They won 8 in a row. They didn't play, the greatest teams, but then they lost 5 in a row. There was a certain magic that they were playing with, and they were kind of just playing free and open. Mm-hmm. They weren't thinking. They were just playing fast, and that's cool. That can work. But it also has its drawbacks. And in those 5 losses in a row, you saw some of the drawbacks, right?
A lot of that was rebounding, defensive rebounding especially.
Well, and efficiency, right? Like when you're just spreading out, running and gunning, it's cool when it works. But, man, when it doesn't, it's ugly.
Yeah, that's another big part of it too. Right. We didn't have any counter for when teams were starting to trap Jalen Green. We didn't have any way to counter that.
At all.
Consistently.
At all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
no help when that started happening. So anyways, there's a balance to be struck. They have created and found an identity. If Jalen can just take them to the next level, that's where we'll really start to see, like, this might not be a 42, 43 win team. Maybe this is like a 50, 55 win team, but we'll see.
Woo, 55. Oh my God. If we win 50, yeah, man. Listen, if we win 55 games, I'm probably gonna buy 3 different jerseys and somebody's shoes too, man. Because at that point, now the reason I ain't bought nobody's jersey yet, because I'm scared somebody gonna get traded. I'm scared.
I don't buy jerseys anymore because people get traded.
That's true.
They get traded, unfortunately.
That's my drawback. I want a jersey so bad, but I'm like, I know whoever jersey I buy is gonna get traded. I just know it. So I'm gonna wait. Let me see who signed the contract first. I'm gonna get your jersey and probably your shoes too if we win 55 games. Boy.
Yeah, that's right. But
yeah, man.
But yeah.
Anything else you wanted to touch on, man? I think we probably touched on everything. Yeah. No baby oil, no Diddy again.
I was about to make a Diddy joke when you said touch on everything, so you beat me to it. No, I think we got it, man. So like I said, I appreciate you having me on. It's nice to get back in the swing of things and think about the Rockets and talk Rockets because they're around the corner. So yeah, thank you for having me, and hopefully we can be good. We'll see.
Appreciate you for coming on too, man. Shout out to Frank FTank58 on Twitter. Shout out to Frank for the Rockets Talk podcast on the Chop Shop. Shout out to Space Ghost too. Man, y'all gotta go subscribe to the Chop Shop. Y'all probably already subscribed to that anyway. You should be. That's a top level YouTube channel over there, man. They doing big things over there, man. Appreciate you, Roosh, for coming on. Tell everybody where they can find you at.
Twitter at Roosh Williams, on the Rockets Talk podcast on the Chop Shop with Frank, and on playback at Rockets Watch. So those are the 3 places that you'll find me the most talking Rockets. Cool beans,
man. If you're still watching right now, that means you a real one, and that means you like what you was listening to. So go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment down below if you feel like insulting one of us. I know which one of us is going to be. Go ahead and do that. We might have some pushback for you, but it's all in the game. It's all love. It's all cool. Have a great rest of y'all's day, man.
Cool, man. Appreciate you.